Welcome, and welcome to Miguel from CARTO. And thank you very much for having us here at your awesome offices. Looking forward to this talk tonight.
Wonderful. Well, as I said before, thank you and welcome to CARTO.
As I said in the introduction before, I think tonight's going to be a really, really good and informative night as an entrepreneur, because you have a long history, and you're currently working in many different things. But before we get there, let's just know a little bit about who you are, where were you educated and born, and maybe your parents, where's your background as well.
How far do you want me to go? Like 100 years? No.
Well, are you that old?
No. So, well, I'm Miguel Arias. I'm originally from the north of Spain, from Oviedo, but I already traveled a lot already as a kid. So my parents moved to Germany at the time, so I was raised partially in Germany. So hence I got German and then English as languages, which is also very important when you try to do an international company and have an international mindset. And then I came to Madrid to study civil engineering, Caminos. So at the time it was like the cool thing to do. In '96, it was the cool thing to do. And so I finished 2002, and it was again the cool thing to do, to work in a construction company, right? It was the boom of construction in Spain. So I was the kid my mom talked about at Christmas, right? Oh, my son, he's in Caminos and he's working at Dragados. But after that, I was actually I calculated one single bridge once. There is one bridge in.
Is it named after you?
No, but I will tell you where it is, so you can never go there, right? It's in Zaragoza, Mayen. Please, never. If you see a bridge, small bridge, go on foot. Just leave the car, go on foot. I'm waiting for the call of the police every night. So I learned about the law of gravity. Things tend to fall. I don't like that. So I thought that I would prefer servers to fall. It's much better because you can always tell them to just hit F5 and see if something may go away, right? With the bridge, if the bridge falls, you're screwed. So then is when I started my entrepreneurial career.
You said that, so you grew up in Germany?
Yes.
Okay. And nowadays, when you look back, do you think that this multinational upbringing and you mentioned languages is important? I mean, languages is the issue I want to raise here with Spanish people, because a lot of Spanish entrepreneurs are not so fluent in English, and so on the language.
I definitely think it's important. For me, having this international experience early on made me want to do my Erasmus outside. And Erasmus was the trigger that made me then make my first company somehow and start working I was working during the university in an association of engineering students, European engineering students. So just by doing that, by learning in a much more softer environment, that you can try things out, that companies can pay you money for things that you do, and that all these relationships can be built. Then when I finished my studies and I didn't like building bridges, I could think back in, wow, what did I do as an Erasmus student, what I learned there, and what I did as a student and a part of this association of engineering students. And these two things made the grounding of the first idea I had as an entrepreneur. So definitely, you never know, right? When you tell the story from the end into the beginning, it always makes sense. When you are living it, it makes no sense at all. So, but I think it's important.
That's so. Your parents, just to go back, so they were not entrepreneurs, or?
So no, my dad is a mining engineer, and my mom is an art historian. So my dad is the I would say the archetypical how do you say that, manager in a company, right? He was a big manager at FCC, as a construction company again. So that was more or less my background. And he tried to do two different businesses. He tried to bring Spanish wines to Germany, so that failed. But we always drink very good wine at home, which is good, because he took all the bottles, at least, with him. And he also started a restaurant, and that failed too, but he made a very great blog about how not to start a restaurant. So at the end, you learn by that, and I think he always had this idea of entrepreneurial mindset, but I learned also how hard it is.
So if you got the question of whether entrepreneurship is DNA and in your environment, or it's something that could be taught, how would you answer that?
It can be definitely taught, and it's more on what you see in the environment is the life you're living and the choices you're taking, but it's entirely on your end. I don't think it's just an DNA thing. No.
Okay, so the first startup and first taste of entrepreneurship was in student in the school, you said, and how did that come about? You saw a problem, a need.
Yeah, well, as students, we wanted to invite for free around 50 students of all around Europe into Madrid. So we had to find money to fund that. So we knew the goal. The goal was bringing all the students for free in every chapter. We had like 50 chapters all around Europe. So we had to get like 10 to 15,000 euros per year to be able to do that, right? So how we get companies to pay us $15,000, and through that we started doing job fairs at the university. So we started organizing everything, making the booths, doing all that, and then we saw that companies were willing to pay us to do all the service for them.
Good entrepreneurial start. But then there was a break in between. You built bridges, or a bridge, and then next, what was the next step in backing into entrepreneurship?
Mm-hmm. So one day, one of my fellow friends that was with me at the association came and said, "Wouldn't you like to feel the same way you felt when we were at university, when we could do everything we wanted ourselves?" And I thought, well, actually, yes, I would like to feel like that. So he said, why don't we try to do the same thing we were doing before, somehow in a professional way? Why don't we just, three of the members of the association, started our first startup, which was Imaste. And our first big idea, we were sitting together and thinking about ideas, and the first big idea that one of them came about was, all of us were Erasmus students, and we knew that in other universities, particularly in Germany, I did my Erasmus in Germany, the university gives you so many services, where to go, where to find accommodation, where you find everything you need when you are a foreign student in this new city. In Spain, you just come here and just figure it out. So we thought, why don't we become this company who provides all the services, from the travel agency to the accommodation to everything else for the students, in the middle between both of them. So that was the first big idea, services for Erasmus students. And we ended up we made like mythic parties with Swedish girls at the time, right? Imagine it was not a really very great recurring business, where we had lots of fun.
So till now we have wine, we have meth, we have Swedish. Okay, no, but there I think you maybe got to a point that many are struggling with, which is this co-founder issue. I mean, you said you were just three guys, but you were already friends. You already trusted each other. And I think co-founders and finding the right co-founders is essential for a product and for a company to take off, because you can't do it yourself. But you can also do a lot of wrong choices. Now, in your case, it came quite easy. This was school friends, but could you give maybe an advice on co-founder issues here?
Yeah, well, I would say it was easy because we had been working together in the association, so we knew each other. But we added another fourth founder at the time, so we were four. Mistakes never be four, right? You should be uneven, so that you can somehow finish discussions by voting somehow, right? And we just did everything the same way. Like, everybody gets 1/4 of the company, and we were too similar. All of us knew the same things, which happens in this kind of student associations. You have a very similar profile. So for the first year, I think we were just reviewing each other's documents all the time, right? Everybody just looking at what everybody else was doing, not clear definition of what everybody is best at. So I think we did all the mistakes, and in the process, we had to eat one of the co-founders, which is something that will happen to all of you once you start, right? Tensions arise. We were 2 years without a salary. So 2 years without salary make you have some tension. So you go back to your mom and ask for some money for the weekend, right? That's so then you have to then negotiate with one of your co-founders. It creates even more tension. I would say most of the companies die because of co-founders or founding member tension. So I think it's incredibly important to define a great number. For me, 3 is the best number. 5 is too much. 4 is even. 2 is even. 1, you're crazy. So I would say 3 is a good number. And nobody ever knows, right? But 3 is a good number, and try to be complementary. So we were not, and we succeeded, but try to be complementary so that you're not stepping on each other's foot all the time.
And if I just may add something to that, even you are just friends sitting together, put it on paper, and put it on paper so that it's with the vision of when you're going to separate, because you're going to pull it out of the drawer one day when you are not friends anymore.
Which we didn't, for sure. So we had no shareholders pact, nothing. So that's a very good point. I mean, things are going to get ugly, And even if they don't get ugly, even after some years you want to sell your company and somebody still has a small piece of the company and you need to get their signature and you don't have any tag along or drag along clauses, then you may have big issues.
Absolutely. So how did that startup go? And
yeah, no. So well, imagine, right? We were PR, disco PR people, Relaciones Públicas, right? With studies. That it was pretty fun, but not recurring, not growing well, not scaling. So we had to pivot. At the time, it was not calling pivoting; it was just screwing up and changing, right? But now it's much better. So we pivoted to our second best idea, which was doing exactly the same thing we did as students, but professionally. Can we do job fairs at the university at scale? And that worked much, much better. So we created a concept called El Tour del Empleo, so the employment tour. And we started in Madrid. We had the connections at the Polytechnic University of Madrid to start in Madrid. But we then had other universities wanting to join the Tour del Empleo. The smaller universities all around Spain wanted to be part of that movement, right? So we ended up having more than 20 different universities and reaching physically 500,000 students every year, with companies paying us for the booths to go and be able to recruit all of those students. And think about that, this is 2005, 6, 7. This is the boom of employment in Spain. So we're exactly at the right place in the right moment and grew from 3 to 35 people and over 2 million euros in revenue by doing a very non-sexy but physical events, physical job first business.
You said something there that just because at the right place at the right time. And I think that's a timing is a lot of the essence in success as a startup. How would you advise people to look for that timing?
Well, in our case, we didn't know, right? So I cannot say that we had any kind of crystal ball into the future. But I think there are some early indicators of trends. You can see what others are doing. You can see what's working in some other places. You can understand the macro trends. Macro trends are obvious, right? We're talking before, the fact that Facebook is becoming a major global thing is obvious. The fact that big data is going to be relevant is obvious. So try to have some tailwind under you, and you can go for macro trends and then just make it your own implementation, right? And that's one thing. And then I don't want to sound that I'm encouraging you to copy. I would not think that copycatting others is the best way. Find a macro trend and then find your own solution.
Good advice. Where did this startup, did it finish? Did you?
Yeah, talking about timing. Imagine 2007, employment and Spain, right? They were not the best match at the time. So we were growing like crazy. We didn't see the crisis coming, like many others. Like, no, this is gonna go. The moment we decided to hire more people and really put all in, and remember that we didn't get any funding, right? The 3,000 euros we started that brought us for 4 or 5 years to 35 employees and a very healthy business. So we invested a lot, and in September 2007, employment in Spain stopped. So, and we were essentially an employment company, right? We were in the middle of the recruiters and the graduates, and nobody else wanted to hire anyone at all. So our company started to fail dramatically, right? From that to just complete annihilation in 6 months or less. So we had to sit with so many friends, and actually it was always just nice, and very nice story till that moment, right? So to sit with everybody, we went from 35 to 12 in almost 2 months, just sitting with everybody, having to tell them that it's not working well, and just trying to keep the people that you think you will need to do to rebuild everything. So it was a very tough moment, and just luckily, and again, luckily, also by thinking about trends, we saw Facebook at the time, we saw Second Life, and we thought, can we bring physical events into the web? Can we bring all these interactions, the booths, the video, the brochure, the 5 minutes conversation? There are always short conversations in a fair. You cannot talk much, right? It's just small. Can we do a video chat, a small chat tool, 3D booths? Not Second Life style, because we didn't like the first person site. We thought it should be much more massive, so three-person site of everything. But we started a virtual job first business, and we convinced Monster, and well, first Universia from Santander, and then Monster.com to do that. So when everything was failing dramatically, the virtual business started to grow. And we reduced to 12, but then the virtual business started to grow, and we started doing virtual job fairs, and then why not virtual trade shows of everything once you have the platform, tourism, MBA shows, everything, right? So we did over 400 different virtual trade shows in over 30 different countries. So we grew again from, the physical events was almost flat and very small. We kept it. And we divided the company in a physical company and a virtual company, growing rapidly over the next 2 years, and again becoming over 40 people, and again revenues over 2 million. But it was a very different kind of company, right? International, web, national, offline.
I think this is a good point here, because that sort of sinus wave, or the roller coaster as it's called, is something inevitably any entrepreneur is going to hit, or any startup. And it's very easy to agree, and it's very easy to find energy and to move forward when it goes well. But what advice when it goes down? What make you guys come in every morning, still do what you do, having to lay off 1/3 of all your friends or more? What advice should we give here?
Smart perseverance, right? It cannot be dumb perseverance that will take you like the lemmings down the cliff, but smart perseverance. I would say keep on thinking about it, but question yourself, question what you're doing. Does it make sense? And we thought that it made sense. It still makes sense. The macro environment had changed, but what we're doing was bringing real value to somebody. If you think so, if you question yourself, but you still think that the answer is yes, I'm bringing real value to somebody, then persevere, because this can change. I mean, luck plays such a tremendous role in all of this, right? So I told you all that, right? Remember having nothing for 2 years, then growing, then crashing, then growing again. And in the meanwhile, we were almost about to be bankrupt almost 8 times. And there were not all of them at the beginning, which many of them were, but also the 6 months before we were acquired, which is the next step. I mean, you never know. So persevere and be as humble to know that you know not too much about the future, but at least you are the one standing in the cliff. The other guys, the guys who are not trying, are not standing in the cliff. At least you are in the cliff, so you can take the leap of faith. So, and that's a beautiful thing to do, a privilege that you have as an entrepreneur. You can take the leap of faith, and you know more than the others, which are a bit behind.
I think when you say luck, I think it's funny, because the people that works the hardest and has the most perseverance are those that you will characterize having more luck. So it is very often about working hard, having ethics, discipline, and perseverance. And that's when you will look back and say, oh, we were lucky.
Yes, but the line between success and failure is very thin. Very thin. I always respect greatly somebody who tries and fails, because I would so easily be this person as well. And I would not be talking to you then, right? So you never know.
Okay. So an exit. You sold the company.
Yep.
Okay, just, how is that? How does that feel, and celebrate? And then do you then jump to the next thing right away?
So at one point, after we were growing a lot, then you start making some noise also in your industry, right? Because then you start maybe getting some customers from somebody in some conference. They see you, and it's noticed. So we got a few different offers before, and it didn't work out. Most of the offers you get to acquire your company do not work out. So it's a very depressing moment, right? Because once you think it's going to happen, it doesn't happen, then it's hard to recover from that. So I always say to an entrepreneur, be very wary of the acquisition offers, because they will make you lose your focus, and that's the only thing you have, focus. So, but then at the end, one company called On24 was the biggest company in our industry. They had raised over $50 million, and there were 500 people. We had raised $0, and we're 40 people, right? So you can see the difference. And they came up with a nice offer, and it was like, can we compete against that, or can we join it? Right? It was for us a no-brainer to decide that we would join that. But it's very hard to be acquired. The way I put it is that the moment your company is acquired, it's like a lightning strikes, and everybody dies. Everybody just dies that moment. Everybody's dead. It's not that they cannot reanimate themselves, and they will reanimate themselves after this death, but they come up back as zombies. So somebody lost one eye, somebody cannot move one hand. So you can do great things with the zombie army. You can do great things with the zombie army, but it's a different animal. Something changed, and you need to acknowledge that. And I always hear entrepreneurs saying, no, we're going to stay independent for 2 years. Yeah, good luck with that, right? So the first moment you're acquired, everything changes because the mindset has changed. I'm not saying you cannot be very successful afterwards, but everything changes. And I just read recently a blog post. There's a guy called Jason Lenking. It's a great guru. SAS, yeah. And he said that there is only two states after you sell your company. One, you feel like the autocar, the car seller, who just sold a very bad car and then like, whoa, they're going to figure out, they're going to see it's a very bad car. Or you feel like Hugo from Lost, and you're going to just try to give the money back. Like I want to take the money, but let me take my company back, but get the money, right? So there's only these two status after selling. I don't know. I mean, I fell with a lot of responsibility when I sold. Like, hey, they are paying this money, they expect all this from us, and they will expect as much as they can from you, right? That's natural. So I wanted to really prove it was the right decision. And when transition matters happen, which is always difficult to integrate teams from Silicon Valley and Madrid, that's super difficult. So I was very, very pressured. It was very, very 2 tough years for me, the lockout period. You know, you have to stay for 2 years normally, so I stayed 2 years. They were very tough.
So having people coming in from Silicon Valley, the cradle of startupship, entrepreneurship and startups, the gurus, how was that different? The culture, the mentality, working with these guys?
Yeah, I mean, there is a specific breed in Silicon Valley, which are the Indo-Americans. It's even more about success, more about working hard. And there are many startups founded by Indo-Americans in the US, which are incredible, right? In technically and from their mindset. And On24 is funded by Indo-Americans. So it was really about weekly revenue calls. I had to manage the sales in the European team. So weekly revenue calls, not monthly, not quarterly, weekly revenue calls, reporting, a lot of this, how do you say that, a sense of urgency. It was a pre-IPO company. So even dramatic sense of urgency, which I have never experienced in my life before. It's a very good teaching for life because it makes you be much more active, but it's also much more stressful. So it was an interesting cultural shock. And when somebody acquires you and they're too far away, and in this case, it was clearly that case. So one thing I learned is that you need to send somebody from that company to stay at least 1 year or 6 months in your company physically. Because most of the learning in companies, in startups specifically, happen informally. It's not like an online training, let's everybody learn about doing that. No, it's, hey, who's the guy who knows everything in this company? It's Paco. Let's call Paco. And Paco is always the guy who everybody goes to ask questions for, right? And happen to all of you. You're laughing because you know who your Paco is in every company you're working at. So there's always one Paco somewhere. This Paco from On24 should have been sent to eMaster right away. And it was not. We had the online training, etc.
Okay. So you had a two years lockup period and you finished. Were you then contemplating on doing something new right away, or what came along as offers? I'm sure that you were with an exit or a sale, people will start saying, oh, I can do things with this guy.
Yeah, you start to be a bit more well-known. At the time, I had also founded Chambéry Valley. We can talk about Chambéry Valley also if you want. So yes, so you had more options, but I just wanted to stop. My feeling was I need some rest. My last month after that, I got peritonitis, right? It's like my body said, this is it even, right? So when I recovered from that, and I was ready to take 1 year sabbatical with my wife and my kids, 2 very young girls. So that was my moment, like 1 year, we go to London, started to plan that, to enjoy that feeling of planning 1 year with less activity, not non-activity, but less activity. And then it comes the story to ties to CARTO, right? The 2 best guys I've ever worked with in my professional life are Javier Latorre and Sergio Alvarez, and they are the founders of CARTO. So they were the lead designer at iMaster and the CTO at iMaster. And these 2 bastards had left iMaster a few years before it was sold, right? They wanted to do their own thing, which was where you are now. It was Visuality, which was the company before CARTO. But I kept a very close eyes to them. I was advisor to Visuality. So 1 week into my sabbatical, we had lunch, and Javier and Sergio said, hey, we are now changing gears. We're like 12 people at a time, looking to raise money to try to make CARTO, and not Visuality now, but CARTO, a global company. wouldn't you like to join and handle operations, sales, the non-technical part, the non-existent, non-technical part of the business, right? So, and when you're offered a seat in the rocket ship, you just take it, right? So I said to my wife, yeah, the sabbatical is kind of over. She didn't like it very much. She doesn't trust me anymore. Then I said you're going to have a sabbatical after the CARTO IPO. She doesn't trust me anymore. But I think it was the right decision 3 years ago.
On the topic of family, and yes, no, it's a question that I always take, and I think it's important to take because becoming an entrepreneur and maybe taking that jump and deciding it is a completely different lifestyle. It has this roller coaster effect, and it can be in hours and days and minutes or months or years, but there is a lot of emotionals going up and down. So you said you had a wife and 2 children. So how do you manage your family and your work? There's no work-life balance because your work is your life. So it's about management.
Yeah, if you ask this to my wife, she would say I manage very badly, very, very badly. I coined a concept called the marriage points. Marriage points are like fidelity points of the airline, just the opposite. The more you travel, you get the fidelity points, you lose marriage points, right? So, and you never recover them. Marriage points are gone and lost forever. So my marriage points count is kind of stable now, but quite low, because you're totally right. I mean, you're always thinking and breathing the company you're building, or you're bringing all the issues. You cannot just stop and say it's 7 p.m. it's over, right? It's never over. You can be here or you can be at home. I never stop working, and I don't know how to do that. What I did is that I now define quality time for my kids, which means I have in my calendar busy from 7:30, which is the time it takes me to go home to be at 8 and see the girls before they go to sleep. So 7:30 to 9:30 is busy, and nothing can happen there. I always try to do. My wife would say I don't always manage, which is right, but I try to be home at 8 to be with the girls. Look what I'm saying, right? That's my great thing is that I'm home at 8, but I try that, and I try to be also always home in the mornings. And with the travel, it's the same thing. I try to travel. I need to travel, but I travel disrupting the family as less as possible, which means not traveling as much as I can over the weekends, etc. It's very hard, but I think you need to define what is the quality time you spend, and when you do that is mobile off, and needs to be time with them, right? And to make them, I do think the girls need as much time as they can get from you, but I think if you can give them quality time, which is that you are totally focusing them and in the family, not just the girls, also your wife, then you can cope with that.
It's about management expectations. If you're clear and open and you have it laid out and people know and your partners know.
And it's a startup in its own. I mean, my wife is the operations manager. I mean, we need to be in this together. And to be clear, and that's important, every year we sit and we evaluate. Is this worth? Do we want to do this, right? This is not my game. If it's my game, then it cannot work out. Do we want to do because it's a big sacrifice for her, for the girls, for myself? Do we want to do this next year or not? And every year we reevaluate.
Very good advice. You said about travels. We know that CARTO now has an office in New York, and you have one in Madrid here. And you have been the one, I think, mostly in New York. How does that work? And what is the difference of working in New York and working in Madrid?
So the person the person in New York is Javier, right? The CEO lives in New York, and we have got now like 30 people in the US, New York and DC. So I try to be a bit the chain of communication between the both. So I travel a lot, and over the last 2 years, I've mostly traveled 10 days a month to New York, Monday to Thursday of the week before, all planned to be on Fridays at home so that I'm not too jet lagged, because when you go at home, you take care of the girls. You know that. So you need to stay up at night. So you need to be able to do that, right? So lately I'm doing that a bit less because I have some personal issues. I'm traveling 1 week per month to the US, but I try to travel 10 days per month to the US, which is pretty hard, but somehow it's also needed because you need to have some kind of communication between the offices. We have done many things, not talking about only myself. Between office communication is an interesting subject, right? Because if everybody is distributed, then it's okay because nobody has more information than everybody else. But if there are some hubs like Madrid or New York, and then some other people remote, and some people in DC and in Estonia, in Tartu, then the less you are closer to the hubs, the less you know. And there is no serendipity happening and no informal communication who makes our life so much more funnier, right? Not just about working. So I mean, if you've seen that when you came in, we installed a screen where you can always see real time all the other offices, the entrance of every office. So you can maybe per coincidence see somebody and just say hey to somebody, see that it's a night, there is Thanksgiving today in the US, they're not at the office. If not, you would not even notice. Is it Thanksgiving? I don't know. Now you know because you see what's going on.
Very good. So you were a founder, you've been a co-founder, you were a founder, and now you are a member of a team as a...
I work for my first intern, which is over there.
Okay. Okay. Do you work any different? Is there any difference from the efforts you're throwing in?
No, it's not. It's not. And then, you know, sometimes I hear that, like, but this is not your company now, right? So you could just leave it to...
Unplug and go at 7.
Yeah, exactly. Leave it to somebody else. But that goes, I think that goes a bit with your character and with the ownership you feel about what you're doing. And it doesn't have to do with any more than that. How much you feel you own what you're doing. And I feel that I very much own things I'm doing here.
Great. Let's move a little bit away from CARTO. You are also a mentor for Vera and for IE Business School, I think. How do you define mentorship? And what should an entrepreneur look for in a mentor? And what are the pitfalls with mentors?
So I love to mentor. I'm sorry I cannot do this much more lately because of all the crazy agenda. For me, a good mentor, and that's only my personal opinion, is just a continuous reality check. So you have all these ideas and nobody knows if you're right or wrong. The mentor doesn't know shit about your future. Nobody knows. If I would know, I would do it, right? So I don't know. But I can always do a reality check of, does it make sense? Or do you have the resources you need to go from A to B? Do you have the funding you need? Does your projections make any sense? I don't know if they're going to be right or wrong, but are they completely off because you cannot grow 10 times per year? Nobody grows 10 times per year. So that I can know from my experience. So for me, a mentor is somebody who comes from the experience to do continuous reality checks. And just that's it. No more big advice, no gurus, no nothing. The gurus do not exist.
So when someone approaches you and asks for your role as a mentor, what are you looking for in that person or in the business that they are suggesting?
So for me, and there I would also answer for that when I invest as a business angel. It's the same thing. It's well, business angel in Spain is the most expensive hobby you can have. It's a very, 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 very expensive hobby. But I do it because I like to work with this person. I'm paying for the privilege of being able to help somebody and learn a bit more about themselves and their industry, what they're doing. So I invested in a mobile apps company because I knew nothing about mobile apps. So I would learn the hard way, but I would learn about mobile apps. Or in any investment, it's been like that. Like I want to understand more how this works, affiliation programs, mobile apps, etc. And it fails or not, but you learn, or there's somebody that you really like. Oh, I like this guy. I want to know more how he works. And so I want to have the privilege to be part of that.
Okay. As a mentor, is there something that is your strength? Is there something that this is your superpowers going into that mentorship role?
I'm afraid not. I don't know. No. Again, common sense. Common sense. I'm always trying to give that to the people I mentor. Like, does it make sense what you're doing or not?
Okay. So both technical and operational. This is your strength today that you're doing that. Okay. So as you have met some of these entrepreneurs, and I'm sure some of them you had said no to, and you said no, thank you in a very polite way. What have been those common mistakes that these entrepreneurs did, approaching you with their wish to have you on board?
Oh, well, that's a good question. There is now the idea that since entrepreneurs need to be perseverant, they can't just bother you every minute, every time, no matter what. I think you can never lose elegance and be polite. I mean, you need to acknowledge the other person you're approaching has their own life, their own pressures and limited time. So the idea that you have the right to have a coffee with everybody else is wrong. It's not true. That's not the right thing about the ecosystem. That's a wrong assumption that you read from a Silicon Valley blog. It's not like that in Silicon Valley, for the matter. You see nobody in Silicon Valley without the right connections. So this community is much more open than others, like the Silicon Valley ones, because we are more nascent, so it's still growing. But be aware that this is, again, if somebody gives you the time, it's 20, 15, 30 minutes, it's a privilege for both, but it's also a privilege for you. So don't take it for granted. I get so many emails like, can you have a coffee with me at Monday 9 a.m.? I cannot. I would love to, but I certainly cannot. So that's this idea of, as an entrepreneur, you need to be bold and just follow your dreams. Well, yeah, but again, smart perseverance, smart pursuit of your dreams, elegance in what you're doing, right? If you do something creatively and elegantly, you will get everything you can.
Excellent advice. You are also, I think, a founding member in what's called Chambéry Valley, which is a network of tech entrepreneurs. How does that work, and can these guys benefit from that?
So Chambéry Valley is a network for the entrepreneurs in scale-up phase. So in the next phase. So I would hope that all of you can be part of that in a later stage, right? It's when you are over 1 million in revenue or 1 million in funding, and probably need to change that now because it's a 5-year-old rule, and now the ecosystem is so much more mature that probably it's like 5 million in funding, right? The idea is that there are so many things like, well, start Grind or many other initiatives for people who are starting. If you're starting, I think in the community in Madrid, you are covered. There are many places to go to ask for advice, to get started, incubators, accelerators, you name it. The next stage, when you are already having 20 employees, international operations, then there was nothing in Madrid. How you can cry on the shoulders of a peer and get his advice, his connections, her connections, and work more to grow your business. And that's the key point for me of the US ecosystem. This connection of trusted peers. And there in the US, no matter if you're in Austin or Seattle, the key people of Seattle know the key people in the Valley, know the key people in Austin, know the key people in New York. That's a network of 2,000 individuals, but they're very powerful. So when we came back here, it's like, can we do something like that in Madrid? Can we just connect the 25, 30 entrepreneurs on the scale-up phase, and can we help each other? And it worked out very well. It's a network of friends now and of trust. So how can we help others? We help for things like this, right? We are very open to the community. We help trying to influence a bit politicians. We try to do a manifesto, and for sure that you didn't read it, but we try to help there, like say what we think that the next phase is needed. And I think the ecosystem in Madrid will not be ready if there's not enough scale-up opportunities. Companies of 500 employees really killing it at this stage, right? And we don't have it yet, right? We are a bit closer, but we don't have it yet.
You played straight into my next question, and that was, what are the barriers for entrepreneurs in Madrid? Where does the ecosystem need to mature and need to be empowered more?
I would say there are not many barriers to start a business in Madrid. There is some funding from public funding and ESAs. You can find some private funding, more business angels coming now on board, or some money from even corporates or business professionals. So I think it's not the money at starting stage. It's not the talent at starting stage. I think the technical talent in Madrid is second to none. It's as good as anywhere else, or as the best places that you can find. I think what we lack is business talent. Not even at the beginning, we have many business schools. So again, I don't think we have any issues at starting point. I think at scale up, we lack some more people with experience in growing companies over 50, 100, 200 people, right? Growth hacking at scale, marketing at scale, sales at scale, all these kind of things, right? So we have some great talent, but we lack to have many more of that. You can see that in New York or in the Valley, there are all these guys who did a lot of stuff at Facebook, not doing it in other companies or in Twitter. All this cross-pollination is not happening yet in Madrid.
And then there's the issue with language, you said.
Well, I would say the biggest issue of many people is that they start thinking that the Spanish market is big enough for anything, because it's in the middle of being almost big enough, right? If it would be in Ireland or in Estonia or in Israel, that's not a question. Here with Spain, we have this size where it could make sense, but I think you need to think global from minute one. Carto was thought in English and built in English from the minute one. We are still only English, right? Even with all the pressure that it's around that. So it makes it easier to conquer a global market if you think in English for the minute one.
Great. We're going to make it a little bit shorter today. So the last questions, continuous education. So what books and blogs and what are you following? What are you reading? And what advice can you give to these guys?
That's a good point. I think the best continuous education you can get is, again, from peers. So I'm a part of a COOs network in New York, where all the big boys, I'm like the small guy, they're like, wow, learning and shy and asking some questions. And here I bring what they teach me and teach here, and it looks like I'm smart. I'm not, I'm just taking the things from the US guys. But I would say be part of networks of your peers, ask and share, right? You need to give to be given, right? That's the most important one. Then if you are into startups, in particularly SaaS, Jason is the guru. It's just the guy who just writes the exact things I'm facing every day. I don't know how he does it. He's looking at my head somehow. So I would follow him. And there are some great guys, particularly I read a lot of SaaS blogs, like the Tom Tungus from Redpoint is great. Philippe Botteri here from Axel, one of our investors, is a great blogger about SaaS metrics and how to do that. So finally I knew nothing about SaaS. Nothing means nothing about SaaS 2.5 years ago, right? So you just read, learn, and talk to people.
I have exactly the same thing with Thomas's blog. Whenever I look up, I said, where did he, I mean, this is what I questioned myself 2 days ago. And then he writes a blog and it's backed up by data and deep analysis that I would never even have the ability to do. So no, it's funny, yes. I think we should open up for questions. You have agreed to take some questions. So yes. There is a trove of entrepreneurship knowledge here. So I hope you guys can have some questions.
So hello, I'm Jorge, and I have, I'm a student and software developer. So I have 2 questions. The first one, how do you manage to grow the team while preserving the company culture?
That's a very good question, and it's a hard one. We try a lot to do that, but for sure it's when you are 1, 5, 7, 15. You are always at the same place. You can talk to each other. This gets transmitted from the founders to everybody else naturally. Now you need to create symbols, documents, even like you need to document your culture and make this available to everybody. We have like a rough guide to CARTO, what it means to be a CARTODBian. Well, I still say CARTODB. You see, the culture stays all the time. A CARTOian, I don't know, like what it means to be somebody, a piece of this family. And we try to make it explicit, and we share it with the company and with every new hire, so they understand what it means, what are our values, who do we work with, who we don't work with. Again, we tried hard. We try to reinforce this in every town hall, etc. And again, it's not easy. We just had our summit last week, and again, it's about that, how you can share the culture values with 100 people now.
Okay, the second one is, how do you normally hire technical talent? And what are the qualities or skills you are looking for?
Luckily, I don't do that. I don't know if Sergio just left, so I cannot have him answer that question. A lot of what we saw is that through network works much better. If you have a great developer, he knows some other great developers, and that's the best way to hire technical talent. But if not, we do a very thorough process. We inherited a bit also from the 20 days. We have some great 20 alumni at the company. So how you do different kind of interviews with different kind of challenges, from technical to personal challenges, and all of them has to have a cultural interview with one of the founders at the end of the process to see what's the fit too. So, but I would say we have a very thorough technical interviewing process right now. It's almost, I think it's like 5 to 6 interviews.
So it's like very similar, like in the Silicon Valley startups or companies, like
I would
Google,
say so. Yeah, maybe with a Spanish touch. We say more bad words while we talk, but yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Quick question. I was thinking that maybe the Madrid entrepreneurial ecosystem was a little bit more developed, and not basically what you said is just it's still growing. In terms of the financial ecosystem for the entrepreneurial side, how mature is it? Do you still find angel investors, or do you still find VCs around?
Yeah, well, a massive evolution over the last 5 years, right? So now there are like over 16 Series A funds, right? I think it's like 400 million ready from VCs to be invested in well, maybe not Madrid, right? Because they're going to not just going to look here, but they're based here, so you can see them, visit them, so part of the Madrid ecosystem. So 5 years ago, raising $1 million or euros was like a huge success for a Series A, right? Now I would say Series A could be 3-4 million or even more, depending on the case. And I would say you have got all the funding you need in Spain, from seed to Series A, taking public and private money. You have it. You don't need to look anywhere else. I think it's hard to look anywhere else because at this stage, when you are very small, they're going to look at you, your peers, your network, what your studies, a lot about the team. So it's not so easy that they're going to invest from you in London because it's too much of a risk, right? And after that, for Series B, the London and the Berlin ecosystem are quite open to us right now, right? From Axel, Early Bird in our case, but many others. They come in more, they come to the events, they start to have some other entrepreneurial antennas to ask for the deal. Do you know this guy? What do you think about this information? We can do intros that we could not do before. So you cannot probably raise 15 million from Spanish money today. Maybe you can, but it would be a stretch. But you can raise it 15, 20, 30 from a combination of Spanish money and European money, I would say.
Fair enough.
Next question.
Hello. You said that you worked before at Dragados, and when you began your first startup, you were working at the same time, or you decided to stop on Dragados and then start with your own thing? Because I'm working right now on a very demanding time work, and I would like to create something on my own, and I don't know what's the timing when you say, okay, it's time to dedicate all my time to that.
Yeah. So we did start it while we were still working in other places, to have our ideas, to draw plans, to think about what we would do. But if you want to start for real, you need to be full in. It doesn't work. It doesn't work part-time. It doesn't work on your weekends, no matter how effective your weekends are, right? So I would say to start thinking about it, yeah. If you want to make it for real, you need to quit and start.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. I ask you a creative exercise. My name is Daniel. I'm an MBA candidate for a business school. And the question is, suppose you had another chance to have your sabbatical year. And so it's a creative time. You have time to be yourself, to brainstorm with yourself. What would be the industry or the sector you would look at for a new venture?
Okay, but then I'm still in my sabbatical in the middle of one, right? So you have to think about
suppose
the
you
future.
have one.
My sabbatical, I'm at the beach or traveling. After my sabbatical, when I have to look at my next big thing, I was talking before with a friend that I read something, and I truly agree on that. We are now on the verge of a tremendous revolution on what machine learning and artificial intelligence will mean to our lives. So I think today we still have like artificial intelligence for one single process or a very defined set of processes: the self-driving car, the automated industrial machine, and that's working already. That's industrial. That's there. That's not like a sci-fi technology. But having artificial intelligence that can mimic the human brain and can be global and really handle all kind of inputs and give logical answers, we're not there yet. But I think we will be there over the next years. So I think that's going to change dramatically how we work, how we socialize, what we do, etc. So if I had to put my head into something, it would be around machine learning and artificial intelligence.
You would do it in Madrid, and you would do it here.
That's a good question. I would do it here. I would start it here.
The weekends, brainstorming.
No, and a bit more than that. And the initial work on that. There is great talent to do that here. Would I build the whole company here? Probably not. And that's a pain. That's a pity.
Thanks.
Okay, I promised we would leave at 10, so we cut it a little bit short. Miguel, it has been really, really interesting hearing you, and I hope you will hang around a little bit because
I will.
I'm sure you have a lot of things to share with everyone. So let's give Miguel a big hand and say thank you.
Oh, thank you, guys. Thank you.